Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're diving deep into a really powerful sermon from Apostle Michael Orokpo. We're going to be breaking down a concept he calls divine enlargement. It's basically a spiritual blueprint for smashing through your limitations and stepping into a life that's just full of purpose. So, let's get right into it.
All right, let's kick things off with a pretty mind-bending question for you. What if you could actually journey to a realm beyond time? The sermon starts right here, with this wild idea that the boundaries of time and space, well, they might not be as solid as we think, that there are spiritual dimensions where our whole perception of reality can get turned upside down.
And check out this quote from the source. It just perfectly captures that idea. Imagine being so deep in spiritual focus that 3 entire days feel like just 40 minutes. We're not just talking about losing track of time here. This is about entering a totally different reality, one that operates on a whole other level.
Okay, so before we get too far down the rabbit hole, let's pull back and define our terms. What exactly is this divine enlargement we're talking about?
So here's the core of it, and this is super important. This isn't about getting rich in the way we usually think, with money and stuff. It's about a deep internal transformation, a total spiritual makeover where your capacity, your insight, your connection to purpose just expands. It's about becoming, as the sermon puts it, rich towards God, meaning your inner spiritual life is just absolutely thriving.
So, the big question is, how does a transformation like that even begin? Well, according to this teaching, it all starts with one single foundational piece, a deep personal connection with God, what's described here as intimacy. And the metaphor used to explain this process is just beautiful. The transformation is compared to an egg becoming a butterfly. I mean, think about that. It's a complete change of nature, from something that's stuck, limited, even handicapped, to something beautiful, free, and able to fly.
Let's break that analogy down even more. Before you have that intimacy, you're like the egg, right? You're ground-bound, you're trekking, your perception is limited. But after, you become the butterfly. Now you're flying with wings, you're transformed, and you see things with this incredible spiritual precision and accuracy. It's a whole new world.
And this change doesn't just happen by accident. It's an active process. It comes from intentionally waiting upon the Lord. The source likens this to entering a furnace of the Spirit, which sounds intense, right? But it's in that place of spiritual refinement that all these dormant abilities, kind of like the wings hidden inside the caterpillar, are finally unlocked and awakened. Okay, so you've had this incredible internal transformation. Now what? Well, this is where it all connects to the outside world. The sermon argues that this change equips you for a very specific external mission.
And the context for that mission is laid out super clearly. According to this teaching, God's work on earth really boils down to 2 main things. 1, saving those who are spiritually lost, and 2, transforming them, which in turn builds up and strengthens the church.
And that brings us to a pretty stark declaration. The activity of soul winning, or evangelism, gets elevated to the absolute highest priority. It's presented not just as a nice thing to do, but as the very definition of spiritual wisdom.
Now, this doesn't mean everyone has to do the exact same thing, which is great. The source outlines 3 really practical ways anyone can participate. You can pray for the mission, you can provide financial resources to support it, or you can be one of the people who physically goes out and shares the message. There's a role for everybody.
But why? Why such an intense focus on this one single activity? To get that, we really have to look at the theological value that's placed on a single human soul.
Okay, let's quickly run through this, because it's pretty profound. The sermon gives 5 key reasons for this ultimate value. First, a single soul is considered more valuable than the entire created world. Just let that sink in. Second, it carries the very image of God. Third, the price paid for it was the life of God himself. Fourth, all souls are considered God's property. And finally, and I love this, the repentance of just one soul is said to trigger a massive party in heaven.
So that brings us to the final part of this spiritual blueprint, the results. For those who actually align their lives with this mission, the sermon promises a whole set of specific rewards and blessings. And here they are. It said that engaging in this work unlocks divine wisdom, it releases supernatural power, and it creates a flow of all the resources and supplies you need. On top of that, it fast-tracks your spiritual maturity, and, maybe most importantly, guarantees rewards in eternity.
Now, to show this isn't just theory, look at this number, 79 million. That's the staggering number of souls reportedly won by the evangelist Reinhard Bonnke during his lifetime. It's just a real-world example of the incredible scale and impact this work can have.
And this quote, which references the book of Daniel, really captures the essence of that eternal reward. It's a promise that those who are successful in this mission won't just be remembered, they'll have a permanent, shining status in eternity. Literally, like stars in the sky, forever.
And that leads to this radical reframing of death. For the dedicated soul winner, death isn't seen as an end, it's just a transition. You don't die, you translate to glory.
And the vision of that moment is just wow. The source paints this incredibly cinematic picture of a staircase appearing right from your deathbed, leading directly into the presence of God. And all along the path, angels are lined up saluting you, welcoming home a returning hero. It's an image of a celebrated homecoming, not a sorrowful departure.
So, we'll end with this question, which really wraps up the entire message we've been exploring. The sermon challenges all of us to shift our perspective, to stop using temporary earthly things to measure success, and to start thinking eternally. It makes you ask yourself, what would it actually look like to build a life measured not by what we can gather here, but by a value system that lasts forever?